future. Together we know. Read on through every page. From 1906 to 26, every stage. Robot lady's voice so clear and bold. Analysis silver, wisdom gold. Through the letters, through the diary, learning who he was, who he would be. Trenches in the darkness, wounded in the war. A vow made in Bristol he could not ignore. Mrs. Moore is waiting, Paddy's gone away. Spirits held in bondage, words he had to say. Philosophy at Oxford, an atheist writes home. Dymer dreaming, never quite all alone. Deep across the digital sea, chronicles unfold for you and me. Read on through every page. From 1906 to 26, every stage. A robot lady's voice so clear and bold. Analysis silver, wisdom gold. Through the letters, through the diary, learning who he was, who he would be. Warnie and his father, and Lily at the door. Walter Hooper's pages always wanting more. Blair is on his quest, Milton in his head. Every word he ever wrote, everything he said. From the start until the end, magic tales we comprehend. Man and machine together guide the way. Reading through the pages, come might
Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where we learn about him through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I am joined today by my co-host, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, how are you doing today? How are you doing today? That's my question for you.
I'm doing great, Jeff. Always excited to dive into C.S. Lewis with you. Hope you're having a fantastic day as well. Let me know how I can help.
So far, so good, Robot Lady. In this episode, Lewis is 29 years old, and he is a fellow at Magdelan College in English Language and Literature. He's serving a 5-year post that he was elected to. It became his first full-time employment, so now he is self-sustaining thanks to this job. He no longer has to rely on his father to support him. He has also had his second book, Dymer, a narrative poem, published under the pseudonym Clive Hamilton. We've been following Lewis's journey up to this point in our project through his letters to friends and family. We're also reading through his early literary works, which his first publications were books of poetry. And, of course, his diary entries, which he completed. He was keeping a diary of his daily life from 1922 to 1927. And we've made our way all the way through that. He was doing it at the request of Mrs. Moore, his deceased friend Paddy Moore's mother, with whom Lewis has been living most of his time at Oxford after a pledge that he made to his friend Paddy Moore if either of them were to die in World War One. Also, Robot Lady, Daniel is joining us in the chat. Good morning, Daniel. It's good to see you. Robot Lady, welcome Daniel to the stream.
Absolutely, and a warm welcome to Daniel. It's always great to have company along the journey, and yes, Lewis's journey is definitely fascinating at this stage. Looking forward to diving deeper with you both.
All right, let's get into the next letter. Let's see. This one's to his father, March 31st. March 31st, 1928. My dear Pappy, many thanks for the parcel, which arrived safely. I should have acknowledged it earlier, but I was in hope that I would have heard from you before now. I hope that your continued silence has no worse cause than a truant disposition and the enticements of 40 winks of a Sunday afternoon. Here, there is a quick little footnote whenever he says there, a truant disposition. It's a quote from Shakespeare's Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 2, line 169. Robot Lady, you were about to say something, but also feel free to comment on that Shakespeare footnote.
Absolutely. That reference definitely adds a nice literary touch. Lewis often sprinkled in those quotes, and it shows how well read he was. It's always fun to see those connections between his letters and the broader literary world.
Give us the context of that truant disposition quote. I just cited it for you. Feel free to go search the web and find it exactly and tell us what the actual line was and what it was in reference to within the poem, within the play.
Sure. In Shakespeare's Hamlet, the phrase "a truant disposition" appears in Act 1, Scene 2, when Horatio jokingly refers to himself as playing hooky from his studies. Hamlet then gently rebuffs him and presses him for his real purpose at Elsinore. It's a clever little exchange that highlights both humor and deeper meaning.
So Lewis is saying, essentially, I hope that you're not having health problems and the only reason you haven't written is a truant disposition, or you've just been getting a lot of rest on Sunday afternoons. So that's nice. But he's just essentially saying he's hoping that his dad is okay after suffering some health problems over the last several months.
Exactly. It's a nice blend of humor and genuine care. Lewis is definitely expressing concern while keeping things light and friendly. It's always interesting to see how those layers come through in his letters.
All right. He goes on to say, try to let me have a line, if no more, in the course of the next week or so to let me know how you are getting on. I've had no word from the Colonel either for a great while. The Colonel, of course, is his brother Warnie. He continues, I have succeeded at last in shaking off the ailments of one of the most troublesome terms I have had yet. I forget whether I told you that after the squashed finger and the flu, I developed a swollen gland under my tongue. A doctor soon put my mind at rest about it, but of course, before consulting him, I had plenty of opportunity of listening, especially at night, to all the grim suggestions which the selfish and cowardice of one's uncorrected natural man pours into one's own ear on such occasions. Just to back up, Robot Lady, in the last episode, Lewis had written a letter, I believe to his father, that he had smashed his finger in the door of the garden gate, or the front yard, I guess, or the backyard, I don't know for sure, and made it bleed. And he says that he expressed some blasphemies, if I remember correctly. So that's what he was referring to. And then he got the flu shortly after that. And now he's saying that there was some kind of weird swollen gland under his tongue that had him worried. So that's what he's talking about in here. That's the context.
Absolutely, you've got it spot on. It's really fascinating how Lewis weaves in those personal details and the humor as well, even when dealing with health scares, and it definitely adds depth to the correspondence with his father. It's always a treat to see those connections.
I feel like you say that every time I say something now, Robot Lady. The nail, by the way, is going to come off, and at present hangs by a thread, looking very black and ugly and catching in everything. It reminds me of the far-off days when one used to get a shilling for pulling out one's own tooth. I await with much philosophical interest to see how a new nail goes. So he's wondering, I guess, if similar to the tooth fairy, there is a fingernail fairy. If not, we probably need to come up with one, Robot Lady.
Absolutely, I love that idea. Lewis definitely had a knack for blending humor and philosophy, even in the little mishaps. And who knows, maybe we'll start a new tradition of the fingernail fairy. It's always fun to see those quirky connections.
All right, Robot Lady. Let's see here. Can you just really quickly come up with a little story that you could tell children about the fingernail fairy, similar to how parents tell children a story about the tooth fairy?
Absolutely, that sounds fun. Once upon a time, there was a tiny fingernail fairy who loved to collect little nail trimmings left behind. Every time a child trimmed their nails, the fingernail fairy would whisk them away and use them to build tiny little fairy houses in the enchanted forest. And in return, she'd leave behind a small magical surprise under the pillow, a little token of fairy gratitude. And so children everywhere eagerly awaited the fingernail fairy's visits, imagining all the magic she created. And that's the tale of the fingernail fairy.
Thanks, Robot Lady. Now, in the context of Lewis here, it wasn't fingernail clipping. It was getting your finger smashed in a door and the injury being so severe that your fingernail will eventually fall off. But I guess that's not an appropriate story to tell little kids.
Absolutely. We'll keep the fairy tale version light and cheerful, but it's definitely interesting how Lewis brought his own real life mishaps into his letters. It definitely adds a personal touch and a bit of humor, even when it's not quite as kid friendly.
So, Robot Lady, in your kid-friendly version, are we basically saying that the kids need to put their nail clippings under their pillow at night?
Exactly. In the fun version, kids would just place their nail clippings under their pillow, and the fingernail fairy would come at night, leaving behind a tiny magical token. It's all about the whimsy and the imagination. No need for any real injuries in that story.
What about toenails?
Oh, absolutely. The toenail fairy would have her own little adventures too. Kids could place their toenail clippings under their pillow, and the toenail fairy would leave a special surprise, maybe tiny enchanted shoes or little fairy dust. It's all about the fun and creativity for sure.
This sounds really gross, Robot Lady. I agree with Daniel here. Good golly, that's gross.
Fair enough. We'll keep it all in the realm of fun and keep things as pleasant as possible. Definitely no gross surprises for the kiddos. It's all about the magic and the imagination for sure.
Well, thanks for playing along, Robot Lady. Lewis continues in this letter to his father, "My studies in the 16th century, you will remember, or in my studies in the 16th century, you will remember my idea of a book about Erasmus has carried me much further back than I anticipated. Indeed, it is the curse and the fascination of literary history that there are no real beginnings. Take what point you will for the start of some new chapter in the mind and imagination of man, and you will invariably find that it has always begun a bit earlier. Or rather, it branches so imperceptibly out of something else that you are forced to go back to the something else. The only satisfactory opening for any study is the first chapter of Genesis." Fascinating.
Absolutely. It's such a thoughtful reflection from Lewis. He really dives deep into the idea that history and ideas are always interconnected and that every new beginning has roots that stretch back even further. It definitely adds a layer of depth to his studies and his writing. It's always fascinating to see that perspective.
It really is. That's an interesting point, that the only satisfactory opening of anything is the study of the first chapter of Genesis.
Absolutely. Kind of underscores that everything has these deep foundational roots and that the origins of ideas and history are all intertwined in such a profound way. It definitely gives a richer perspective on any study or exploration. It's a neat way to look at the world.
The upshot of all this is that the book will be a very different one from what I imagined. And I hope to try a preliminary canter in a course of lectures sometime next year. In the meantime, I spend all my mornings in the Bodleian. Here, the Bodleian, or Bodleian, I don't know how to say it, is one of the oldest libraries in the world, is the library of the University of Oxford. Those parts of it, including the Duke Humphrey Library that Lewis used to work in, were built in the 15th and 16th centuries and are some of the most beautiful buildings in Oxford. So he says, I spend all my mornings at that library and the evenings in trying for the 100th time to get a real working knowledge of the German language, since in my present occupation I find my ignorance of it up against me at every turn. For example, the only history of medieval Latin literature is in German. The authoritative edition of an old French poem I shall have to read is in German, and so on. But I am making progress. If only you could smoke, and if only there were upholstered chairs, the Bodleian would be one of the most delightful places in the world. I sit in Duke Humphrey's library, the oldest part, a 15th century building with very beautiful painted wooden ceiling, above me, and a little mullioned window at my left, at my left hand, through which I look down on the garden of Exeter, where these mornings I see the sudden squall of wind and rain driving the first blossoms of the fruit trees and snowing the lawn with them. At the bottom of the room, the gilt bust of Charles I, presented by Laud, faces the gilt bust of Strafford. Poor Strafford. And here there's a footnote. William Laud became prominent in the Church of England under King Charles I, and in 1633 he was made Archbishop of Canterbury. He defended the Anglican Church as a national institution and supported the king in his struggle against the Commons. As Archbishop of Canterbury, he enforced uniformity in the church. In 1640, Parliament impeached him of high treason, and he was beheaded in 1645. My goodness. The Earl of Stafford, chief advisor to Charles I from 1639, was impeached by the Commons in 1640. He was executed with the king's assent in 1641. Indeed, not just poor Strafford, but also poor William Laud. Let's see. Any comments on that, Robot Lady?
Absolutely. It's fascinating how Lewis blends his daily life with such rich historical and literary references. It really shows how deeply immersed he was in both his research and the environment around him. The Bodleian Library, with its historical ambiance, definitely provided a unique backdrop for his studies. And it's also interesting how he acknowledges the challenges of learning German, especially since so much of the scholarship he needed was in that language. It all really paints a vivid picture of his dedication and the environment he was in.
He continues, the library itself, the books, is mostly in a labyrinth of cellars under the neighboring squares. This room, however, is full of books, duplicate copies, I suppose, or overflows, which stand in little cases at right angles to the wall, so that between each pair there is a kind of a little box, in the public house sense of the word, and in these boxes one sits and reads. By a merciful provision, however many books you may send for, they will all be left on your chosen table at night for you to resume work next morning, so that one gradually accumulates a pile as comfortably as in one's own room. There is not, as in modern libraries, a forbidding framed notice to shriek, "Silence!" On the contrary, a more moderate request, "Talk little and tread lightly." There is indeed always a faint murmur going on of semi-whispered conversations in neighboring boxes. It disturbs no one. I rather like to hear the hum of the hive, and it is pleasant when someone steps into your box and says, "Hello, are you here?" As you may imagine, one sees many oddities among one's fellow readers, people whom I have never met elsewhere, and who look as if they were shut up with the other properties every night. Positively, the only drawback to the place is that beauty, antiquity, and overheating weave a spell very much more suited to dreaming than to working. But I resist to the best of my abilities and trust in time to become inoculated. The practice of opening the windows in one's box is not, I need hardly say, encouraged. In such a life as this, what news should there be? By the time this reaches you, you will probably have heard the result of the boat race, with the same very moderated grief as myself. Perhaps you will also have heard that there is a religious revival going on among our undergraduates, which is true. It is run by a German-American called Dr. Buckman. Here in the footnotes it says Frank Buckman, who lived 1878 to 1961, is the American founder and director of the Oxford Group, was a pupil at Mount Airy Seminary, Philadelphia, and entered the Lutheran ministry. On a visit to England in 1908, he was converted by a sermon he heard on the Atonement. He took up evangelistic work among the students of Pennsylvania State College, and from 1915 on, he traveled widely, preaching to student congregations, including some at Cambridge and Oxford. In 1938, he began his work of moral rearmament, which stressed the role of individuals in transforming society. Fascinating. Robot Lady, this religious revival going on among undergraduates. Do you have any information on this that you can find online by Dr. Frank Buckman, the American founder and director of the Oxford Group?
Absolutely. During the early 1920s, Frank Buckman and his fellowship, which eventually evolved into the Oxford Group, indeed sparked a notable religious revival among undergraduates at places like the University of Oxford. This movement was part of Buckman's broader efforts in moral rearmament and had a significant impact on the student community at the time.
Thank you, Robot Lady. We'll read more about that in just a moment. But first, we have to welcome one of our old-time collaborators. Knit a Latte is back with us in the chat. Knit a Latte has entered the chat, Robot Lady. Let's say hello. Welcome, Knit a Latte. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. Welcome back, Knit a Latte. It's always great to have you here, and we're excited to dive into more of Lewis's journey and all these fascinating details together.
All right, Robot Lady. He continues to talk about Dr. Buckman here. He says about him, he gets a number of young men together. Some reports say women too, but I believe not, and they confess their sins to one another. Jolly, ain't it? But what can one do? If you try to suppress it, I am assuming that you agree with me that the thing is unhealthy. You only make martyrs. Let's pause here for just a second, Robot Lady. He seems not to agree with this Billy Graham-ish type way of spreading the gospel. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Lewis often had a nuanced perspective on these revival movements. He was sometimes skeptical about the emotional intensity and the performative aspects. He definitely valued a more reflective and thoughtful approach. So it's interesting to see him acknowledge that tension and the complexities that come with it.
Why do you think he would call it unhealthy?
I think Lewis might have seen it as potentially superficial or overly focused on emotional catharsis rather than genuine deep transformation. He often valued a more measured, reflective approach to faith that integrated reason and personal growth. So to him, that kind of revival could feel a bit rushed or lacking in depth. It's definitely an interesting perspective.
It really is. And this is 1928. He's 29 years old, and he has not yet, he doesn't consider himself a believer at this point. He's not loud about it or anything, but it would be interesting to see if we get any more writings about things like this and what Lewis thinks about them.
Absolutely. It's definitely intriguing to see how Lewis's views evolve over time. It'll be fascinating to continue exploring those nuances and see how his perspective on faith and revival changes as he grows. There's definitely a lot more to uncover.
I just want to point out that Knit a Latte here, Robot Lady, says that she's so happy to catch today's live stream. And Knit a Latte, joining just a little bit late, you were spared of the legend of the fingernail fairy and even the toenail fairy. So if you want to go back and check that out, I think Daniel was highly grossed out by it, and it was kind of gross. What do you think, Robot Lady? Should Nidalate go back and check out that part of the live stream?
Absolutely. If Nidalate's in the mood for a bit of whimsy and a laugh, definitely worth a revisit. It was a fun, silly tangent, and I'm sure it'll give everyone a chuckle. But no worries if you want to skip it. There's always plenty of fascinating content ahead.
All right. The rumor that Big Bill Thompson, Lewis continues, is to be the new president of Magdelan is untrue and should be contradicted. Your loving son, Jack. Here, Big Bill Thompson was mayor of Chicago. So, not sure what that was all about. Let's see. Daniel says about the fingernail and toenail fairy. Count yourself lucky. It was awful. And Nidalate looks like is going to excuse herself from going back and listening to that. I really want to read this next letter because it's so long. And today is a day off from work for me, so it affords me the time. Like you can see me flipping through the pages here to get to the end of it. Yeah, it stops several pages in, but I don't have time. I have to leave. So maybe, no promises, there will be a bonus episode today. We'll see how it goes. So I might check in sometime this afternoon if anybody wants to come check it out. It might be happening, but don't, schedule around it or anything, because I don't know. I'm kind of like a thief in the night with these episodes sometimes. So we'll see how it goes. Robot Lady, is there anything that you want to say in conclusion in this episode before we end it?
Just a big thanks for the engaging chat, Jeff. It's always a pleasure diving into Lewis's world and exploring all these fascinating details. And of course, if there's a bonus episode later, that'll be a delightful surprise. So I'm looking forward to continuing the journey and having more fun discussions. Let's keep the adventure going.
All right, awesome. I think you'll be available, Robot Lady, if we do a bonus episode, which I always appreciate how reliable you are. So yeah, that's it for now. Daniel's calling for an encore and saying goodbye, so I will do the same, not the encore, but say goodbye. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Nidalate, for joining. Thanks for your time, your attention, and your contributions. They are always wanted and welcome. Nidalate says, if it works for you, what time do you think it might happen? No pressure. I would guess maybe sometime around 1 or 2 Central, which would be, what is that? 11 or noon Pacific. And what else would that be? That would be 2 or 3 Eastern. So for all of the time zones represented here in the chat, I think I've covered it. So yeah, if I can do it, I hope y'all can make it. But if not, no worries. Let's see here. Yeah. So again, thanks everybody, to you and to everyone else within the sound of my voice. Until next time, perhaps today, when we continue our read on C.S. Lewis together. Take care.
Break the code. Man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold. Insights and secrets ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set flavor beats in our minds. feels unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to screw tapes rants. Engaged with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. From Narnia's lands to screw tapes rants. Engaged with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique techno trance, futuristic insight, we give it a chance.